Now that we understand what a segregated accounts company actually is, how do you set one up? What is the process? What are the compliance obligations? What are the legal requirements? And how do businesses actually get it right from day one? Joining us again for the discussion is Acting CEO of JIFSA, Rickie Davis. Welcome back, Rickie.
Thank you, Kalila.
So in our last episode, we learned all about SACs and what they are, Segregated Accounts Companies. How does one go about establishing one?
So there's a three-part process. One would be to get permission to use the term Segregated Accounts Company. That permission comes from the FSC. I'd mentioned previously that the FSC is a part of the process. And so you would have to submit a request and a justification for the use of the SAC. And that justification, of course, would include why a SAC. Once that is done, then the name is reserved with the company's office. And thereafter, it is incorporated as a company under the Companies Act to the FSC for the designation of SAC. And that's it. It sounds simple on paper, and we intend to make it very simple, but that's the process.
There is some runaround involved. 'Cause we know Jamaica doing business sometimes can involve here, there, and everywhere.
So we'll be involved to make it easier, but some things just have to take a certain amount of time for due diligence to be done and that sort of thing, yes.
So what are the legal requirements?
The same as if you're incorporating a company under the Companies Act, because you recall that I said that it begins its life as a company under the Companies Act, and it must adhere to those formalities. So by legal requirements, you mean in terms of directors and so on, it would be quite similar.
Okay, so not anything extra?
No, the only extra is that now that you would involve the FSC and based on the business that you're doing as well.
Right, because FSC doesn't regulate companies.
No, it doesn't. It regulates activities. So, and I think that's true for most regulators. They regulate activity. You need to be licensed to be able to do this, a certain activity. And because you're doing a certain activity, there are certain guidelines that you must follow. Like even if you're going to have a company on the stock exchange, there are certain procedures that you must go through in order to be able to be on the stock exchange.
Okay. I didn't even realize the implication of it when you said it in the first interview, that the FSC is one of the agencies that's involved. Because
Yes.
that's the Financial Services Commission.
Correct.
So even if your company isn't offering financial services specifically, it's still, once you're a SAC, it still comes under FSC?
That is correct.
Ah, I see.
In that case, yeah. It's the default primary regulator.
So how does a company properly create and define its segregated accounts?
So that would be for the company to do, depending on the activity that it undertakes. And of course, the mandate, again, is important because each segregated account is required to have a mandate by which it is governed. So that's an internal exercise. And again, in the previous interview, you had said that it's not necessarily for everyone, or that it could be an expensive venture, because one of the things that you'd want to do is to ensure that you've created the proper mandate for the activity, and that would probably involve the use of attorneys and the attendant attorneys' fees.
So what type of governance structure are we talking about here? Do you need different managers or oversight for each account?
Yes, essentially, that's the mandate we're talking about. And even within that, so 10 segregated accounts, 10 mandates, 10 persons with responsibility. And when I say 10 persons, it could be 5, each managing 2, or whatever the case may be. And so they are responsible for oversight of each segregated account. but then it flows up and they must also report to the segregated account company itself in respect of the activity that they're undertaking with each segregated account.
You know, here in Jamaica, AML-CFT is a big thing. Anti-money laundering, countering the financing of terrorism. There are all kind of regulations so that we don't end up on blacklist and gray list. And so you have all these know your customer requirements, the KYC obligations. So how does this structure of being a SAC help to meet those obligations?
Again, remember, and you're quite right, I think we're at the moment, we're undergoing a 5th round as well. So because it has to be a company under the Companies Act to begin with, the Companies Act has passed muster for it. You know, it was one of the things that was done to help to get us off of the grey list. Several things related to the Companies Office. So that's a threshold. The threshold is what, once you've complied with the Companies Act in respect of due diligence, beneficial ownership and such, then it puts you in good stead, so to speak. So it's not as if it's a separate regime altogether. It's separate enough, but it's not a separate regime in terms of the due diligence requirements, beneficial ownership requirements, and the like.
Okay, good. So what are some common mistakes that businesses should avoid when using this structure?
Well, in terms of mistakes, one of the things that, what the Act allows you to use an existing company and convert it to a segregated accounts company. But you go through extra steps to be able to do that, because you have to now advertise to ensure that there are no creditors out here, that you're not doing it to avoid creditors, that sort of thing.
Okay.
So that's something that I would suggest that if it is at all avoidable, begin with a new structure.
Okay.
So that you don't have that kind of baggage. Also, the segregation of the accounts, as I said before, it can be, there is no one rule fits all for the segregation. You can segregate it, for example, depending on what you can segregate by client, you can segregate by project, you can segregate by asset class, that sort of thing. So if you have multiple assets or multiple, let's just even say shares, let's say one of the assets that you have are shares. You may have different types of shares, management shares, participation shares, whatever. You could probably group them together as well. And so in the management of those shares, for whatever those shares entitle you to, becomes more streamlined.
Are there specific reporting or auditing requirements for SACs?
Not for SACs per se, but if it's engaged in regulated activity, then with that comes reporting requirements.
So what type of reporting requirements?
Well, it would depend. So, for example, I'll use Bermuda as an example, so to speak, because they use these segregated accounts for captive insurance purposes. So, whatever the insurance regulator there requires for conduct insurance business, whether it's bonds or reserves or whatever, those are what they will have to abide by. And so depending on the activity that you undertake, that will determine what your governance structure and your due diligence will look like.
So do companies need like certain internal controls just to make sure that everything is transparent and accountable?
Absolutely, and even without segregated accounts companies, I would suggest that that is best practice. What the segregated accounts company does is allows it to be more transparent. It allows you to be able to pinpoint or to focus on the different aspects of one segregated account versus the next. And for transparency, that's a good thing.
So now for companies that are, they're watching this interview, their higher ups are watching and they say, maybe this is a good structure for me. What ongoing responsibilities should they be prepared for?
The ongoing responsibilities won't vary significantly from what you would have for engaging in a regulated activity. But what would be required in this case is to be able to account for each segregated account in a meaningful way. So you have to have internal controls as to how each segregated account reports to the company. So those are the things that so going back to your original question, those are the things that you'd want to put in place. And it's all based off of good governance, and that's what we want. We want good governance, we want transparency, and we want ease of doing business. And we also want to be able to have what I call fit-for-purpose vehicles. Not one size fits all. You may like Kellogg's cornflakes, I might like Post. Somebody else might like Lasco cornflakes or something like that.
Okay. All right. And of course, JIFSA is here to help you get the process
Absolutely,
started.
100%.
Well, thanks again, Rickie.
Always a pleasure.
Teach me something new again. I like that.
It's 2 days in a row.
Now, if this sparked ideas for your business strategy, take the first step and contact JIFSA to learn more. The link is below. And you can also check out part 1 of this interview right here on YouTube to learn more about what a SAC actually is. And of course, stay tuned for more interviews that keep you informed and ahead of the curve. Let's get this money.